Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
This is Daughter of a King, written by myself, Jan Jordan. Pretty much what this is a pre-mortal fantasy novel for young adults where our main characters are in what we would refer to as a souling state. They have not lived in mortal worlds yet and died. Their parents and overseers are immortal, who have already lived through mortal worlds and are probably several centuries or 1,000 years old. Lots of experience there. And each souling is assigned a sylph, which they cannot see in this particular realm. And that sylph is essentially like their personal historian. They record the souling's experiences in the pre-mortal world. I don't want to go into a lot of the world building, but it would only be under special circumstances that sight of the sylph is granted to a soulings. And soulings don't even know they're there. In this particular reading that I'm about to do, sight is about to be granted to our main character, Hulda. So that's where we're at. She is going on a picnic lunch with her immortal brother and mother. So here we go. Arguing further was fruitless. I loved the hillside. Caleb knew that and brought me out whenever the heaviness of my plight bore me down. Now I would have our stairs to nowhere and nothing more. It grieved me. The path forked to the right and left as we approached the tree line. We bore right and began our climb to the overlooks above the castle. It was silent for some time. I didn't mind. With the sun at my back and the trail beneath my feet, peace grew within me. Birdsong filled the air as shafts of golden sunlight burst through the thick pine ceiling. I wondered not for the first time what secrets the forest held. Lean on your mother's wisdom and protection. The time will come when she won't be near to guide you. I shook my head like a bee was buzzing in it. Voices, always voices. My eyes narrowed as I glared at nothing, annoyed by the interruption. Determined to silence it, I began to hum. A quarter hour later, we stepped off the narrow trail onto a large stone outcropping. Emmett let out a whistle, and Mother's smile softened her contemplative face. Their voices were soft, speaking in the old language soulings weren't allowed to learn. I set Cora down on a nearby stone and dropped my backpack. Caleb had brought me and Sammy here. For a moment, I could almost feel him with me. Come on, I called, pulling the blanket out. Let's set up so we can eat. We moved with the fluid skill of a family. Emmett took 2 corners and helped me spread our ground covering while Mother withdrew the serving utensils and a water skin from her pack. We made quick business of unloading the basket and making ourselves comfortable as a slight breeze picked up. Before we eat, Cora should be set free, Emmett said as he took a seat across from me. Her impending loss came with a wave of regret. It had to be done, but I hated it almost as much as losing Caleb. It was just too easy for me to grow attached. My eyes met Mother's, and I knew I had to make the best decision for Cora. Goodbye, little friend. Be safe in your journey, I said, untying the green twill. Cora climbed to the top of the container, her tiny insect feet clinging to the edge as she flexed her bandaged wing. Mother and Emmett were quiet, watching as I gave a shrug. Maybe she's not going anywhere. Give her time, Emmett said. I don't expect she'll stay with us long. Setting Cora off to the side, we plated a variety of cheeses, fruits, and bread prepared for the occasion. The sunlight warmed my face as I chewed, watching Cora's movements. Oh, look, I said, wiping the corner of my mouth as Cora took flight. She's off. The breeze caught Cora in a staccato rhythm, taking her higher and higher toward the tall pine trees until she vanished from view. It's a good thing you did for her, Mother observed. I'm proud of your willingness to let her go. I shrugged. She deserves to be free, and she's where she belongs. And do you believe Caleb is where he belongs? Emmett's brow raised at Mother's question. I looked between the two of them, popping a grape in my mouth as I thought about it. Swallowing the sweet fruit down, I decided it would be best to be forthright. We are taught since our earliest memory that the journey is essential to our existence and becoming immortal, but I often wonder, why can't we just stay here? We're happy and safe, at least for the most part. True, Emmett pursed his lips, giving me the satisfaction of at least considering my thoughts before countering them. Mother sighed. This place is where you learn to stand on your own. It will be with you when you go. Caleb knows this and will have the strength to face whatever comes his way. But what good is it to put ourselves in harm's way? My eyes shut, considering the hauntings that had come over the years. It feels like all the probabilities of mortality have found me here where I should be safe. Caleb helped diminish those fears, and now he's gone. Don't you see that I want to hold close the little safety I have? Your situation is unique. Mother's voice was gentle. Though a remedy has not been found quite yet, you are not without protection. Huldah, look at me. The sunlight blinded me as I dared to open my eyes at Mother's request. Her smile was faint as she sat straight, cross-legged and bathed in the afternoon sun. We want to give you a gift, she said. Something that is not typically granted before a souling returns from their mortal journey. I sat up, interest piqued. The small council has decided your predicament requires an alternative approach while the remedy continues to be sought. Will this gift make me more normal? It seemed like a good question. I thought over all those faces that had stared at me in the plaza earlier. Mother looked at me for a long moment, considering her words. It is a secret that will advance your normality in the long term, though may further separate you from other soulings during this time of preparation. What could I possibly want that would make me more different than I already was? My eyes narrowed while waiting for more. There are souls within our realm that you soulings can't see. At the conclusion of the division, it was decided that this particular host of immortal souls would be veiled from souling sight. Some have come here for rehabilitation before moving on to another realm. Others, for reasons beyond your need to know, give service to soulings in various capacities. My mouth hung open, a grape held in my fingers halfway to it. Emmett was no help. His smile was in place, but a seriousness in his eyes caused my stomach to knot. Some of these immortals choose to become what is called a keeper, Mother continued. They are entrusted with recording the life scrolls of young soulings and often attend their souling during their mortal journey as the subconscious. Caleb's self, for example, accompanied him. So our instincts aren't our own? I looked around, wondering if there was an invisible immortal nearby. Your instincts are your own, but the voice of yourself, the classification given to these immortals, is there to warn or guide as you go. So why can't we see them? What changed with the division? Mother looked to Emmett. Both of their faces revealed no shock that I would push for more details. When the darkness rivaled for control of our home, Emmett said, his influence over sylphs and creators was vast, but his focus didn't stop there. He used the sylphs to penetrate the ranks of soulings, souring a generation. Many soulings were lost as a result. In the aftermath, it was decided that to protect soulings, their sylph counterparts would remain veiled until departure to the mortal journey. They were vetted quite intensely before becoming keepers, Mother interjected. So in addition to the darkness, I have an immortal sylph who is called a keeper, stalking me and putting thoughts into my head. She's not stalking you, Huldah, Emmett chuckled. She's like a personal historian. She records the events of your life while watching over you. Laura is a lovely sylph. I believe you're going to like her quite a lot. Mother nodded in agreement. This is the gift we have chosen to give you, that of sight and a bond to build with Laura. Can you see this sylph? Laura person? I asked, my eyes growing in a heightened sense of alarm. Of course we can. Mother's patience was long. Only souling lives within our realm have been veiled. I threw my hands in the air. There was an entire population we couldn't see, and I was about to meet one. Be calm, dear, Mother encouraged. I'm doing this because you need her and she needs you. The bond you share will grow and help you in times ahead. Of that I am certain. My hands trembled, clasped together as I forced them into my lap. Come, Mother said, sit close to me. I scooted across the blanket, quaking in anticipation. Mother's eyes held mine as she extended her left palm just before raising her right hand and snapped. Golden bursts of light flew upward from her extended palm, swirling into the shape of a golden rose, only to dissemble and then reform again. Hold that, Emmett said. Touch your fingertips to Mother's. My trembling fingers untangled, and I lifted my hand. When our fingertips met, the golden sparks flew from her palm to my own. They twisted and turned before settling into a soft band of delicate rose vines circling my wrist. Blink, Mother urged. My vision blurred and moisture filled my eyes. It took several moments before I could make out much of anything. When it finally cleared, a petite woman with pink hair and dressed much like me sat on Mother's knee. She stared at a similar golden circlet around her wrist and glanced up as I pushed backward. Hilda, Mother said. This is Flora, your keeper. The little person broke into a wide grin. Two wings fluttered behind her, trimmed in gold that also ran along the veins and matched our circlets. Hello, she said. It's nice to finally meet you. I recognized that voice. It crept into my thoughts, lingering in my mind, and was always there when the darkness came. I scrambled to my feet, fists balled. It's you, I see. I never wanted to meet you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. I am so thrilled to have the fabulous Miss Jam. Hi, sweetie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am thrilled you're joining us, and I don't want to waste any time, so we're just going to get started. I got the pleasure of reading this book before it came out, and I was so enthralled with the whole concept of it, the entire high magic world, and everything about it. So I want you to tell us, where did this story come from? Give us an insight into this process.
Well, this is actually a National Novel Writing manuscript. It started out, I kind of wanted to write a children's bedtime fairy tale. And I've never wanted to write a high fantasy or anything like it. And this thing just took over. Sadly, some of my writing partners informed me a little bit later when they saw the original manuscript that I had indeed started a high fantasy and now we're stuck. Yeah.
Absolutely high fantasy. It is a very coming of age story, and the elements are very interesting to me because this is almost an in between world that you have created. How does it work? Tell us.
It's a developing world. The idea is there's a cosmos and that life happens before mortal journeys or mortal life, like what we're in here, and life continues afterwards. That this is all about a growth process. And coming of age is a cycle that we continue to go through. I personally tell people all the time that I feel like I'm still in my 20s. I mean, my body's aging, but my mind is not. I personally feel like what's the purpose of existence if it doesn't continue? Continually becoming of age and growing and developing. And then, true to the human experience, as well as in the fantasy world, there's always elements of darkness there. Hulda is haunted, so to speak, before she even enters the mortal world. Her innocence is tainted from the beginning. It starts when she's just little and born into existence, and it begins, and it's going to plague her throughout her existence. And that's where the story picks up when she's a teenager.
I love the journey that you take the readers on and how much you're inside this poor child's head and all the things that she goes through when you are creating these characters because you have a teenager and then you have a self that's much older. Like, how do you went back and forth between those two ages and kept them going simultaneously?
They had to have their own backstories. It's Hulda's story that we're journeying with. But Flora has lived through mortal world and her mortal experience, and she was very damaged from it. The reality is not all of us get out of life having had a silver spoon or a pleasant experience. And what do you do with that? How do you recover from that? And that's part of Flora's story. And so I've had to really learn who Flora was before I really could write Hulda, because it's Flora's experiences and the two of them working together that's going to push and pull Hulda through what she's going through and creates kind of the dynamic with the other characters that we have in this story as well. So all of my sylphs, all the immortals, they all have their own backstory, and some of which is going to spill out as we progress through the series.
You have some stages that you go very raw. Like there are some places in the story that the characters truly kind of hit your soul and they tug at you. How much of that did you have to pull from yourself to bring people there?
I've always felt like most authors draw from their own experience. I feel like my life experience has not been a fairy tale. We'll put it that way. Yeah, I do sometimes have to go into some of the experiences I've had, some of the experiences that I've seen other people go through. As a historian myself, the human condition fascinates me. I'm very curious. I like to understand what make people tick. And I feel like I try and spin it from my own lens for my different characters, and I think that's where that comes from. I'm so grateful I'm a historian, like, it helps so much to be trained on some levels to look at the human condition and then to relate it through telling a story in a fictional environment so it doesn't feel as heavy, but we can still kind of pack a punch, so that's what I try and do.
You add a lot to these layers and a lot to these emotions, especially when everything is so intense at that age. You could have made it an adult book. Why did you decide to make it YA?
Well, I have raised 4 of my own children, and I'm a school teacher. I teach history at a high school, and I'm around teenagers all day, every day. They crack me up. They are so busy trying to be adults and trying to get their life going, and we don't realize until we have the hindsight of having lived for a while in the adult world just how naive or novice we were at those teenage years. But teenagers are fun and they're lively and they make really good covers. I don't want to put a 40-year-old on my cover either. I like the youthfulness, getting to travel with Hulda and her brother Sammy and the other soulings. We're going to get to go to the mortal worlds. That's going to be fun. So there's lots of good reasons to throw teenagers under the bus, so to speak, and then grow with them. I think that's life. So it's good.
This is a series. You're getting ready to go to the next stage. What are you envisioning now?
I released a prequel short story. It came out in November, and this novel, Daughter of a King, was published in September. In the short story, you get to see Hulda when she was a toddler and when the darkness really starts to be present, as well as some prophecies that were given. The next book, book 2, is going to be about another souling, though Hulda and Sammy are very much there. She's a worker. She's part of the community. She's not a royal souling, and what that looks like. And as we continue the overall arch of the darkness trying to take over this realm, we're just going to be looking at the same problem with some new problems from a different lens as we progress the overall arch. We will do that for the second book. The third book, all I'm going to say is it's called Daughter of Darkness. There's more layers that have yet to be revealed. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And then book 4 will be as these soulings go to the mortal worlds and we'll experience mortality with them and see what happens after that.
Are you ready for this journey? Because this is a lot. Like, are you ready as the writer to
No,
go in? Because you have some deep issues going on in these series. How are you preparing yourself for this?
one day at a time. That's the best way to do it. One writing session at a time. I'm a pretty good chunk through the second novel. I do a lot of storyboarding as far as like I've got the entire series mapped out. And as things change, because they do when you're writing, your characters will take you sideways. There is a character in the second book I never knew was coming, and she has shown up and she's important to the overall arc. So I'm like, okay, it's a big cast and I do enjoy that. Lots of room to play. But really, it's just one day at a time. It takes pebbles to build a mountain.
I love it. As a writer, we read all the time. Who is your inspiration? What writer has actually touched you to get you on this journey?
I would definitely have to give credit to Robert Jordan and his Wheel of Time series. I was actually gifted his first book when I was in college, and it's a large series if you're familiar with it. He passed away before it was finished, and Brandon Sanderson actually finished it for him. I went to the Wheel of Time series. It was at a place in my life where I needed something outside of myself. I needed to be reminded what strong women look like. I needed to have an adventure to go on, and Mr. Jordan's work gave me that. And I like to kind of try and live my life where I pay things forward. And I just hope that my novels can do that for somebody someday.
Tell me, sweetie, you kind of hint at it. What projects do you have? Because most writers have more than one book they got going on. What do you have in the works for us?
Well, I'm writing this series and published through Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. This is my YA fantasy series. I also started a series. I self-published the first book before doing this one, actually. This kind of came out of left field, but that's contemporary fiction. So I have a contemporary fiction line that I am adding some material to that first book that I took out. I'm actually going to republish that hopefully this year. That's in the plan, but things sometimes come out of left field for me. Like I got married, didn't see that on my radar. I did not see that on my radar 6 months ago, and here we are. Same thing with the writing. The contemporary fiction stuff, I think I will probably always self-publish. I want to take my time with it. I pulled the trigger way too fast in the beginning and want to fix that and finish that series. It is a fiction series. It touches on some areas of life that are very important to me. So I want to see that through. So there's that, and some short stories. I love to write short stories. They're like the breath of fresh air. So that's good. So there will be those coming around every once in a while. And I have a blog I try to be consistent with, but that doesn't always happen. So, but I do have some other fantasy manuscripts that I have a whole list of ideas on my phone, but I do have another manuscript I'm working on that I would like to pitch an agent and traditionally publish that way.
You have lots of going, lots of fun things for people to find you and to get their hands on in different genres. So I love the fact that you are a multi-genre kind of author. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of everything everywhere. What advice would you give an up and coming author who is trying to tackle some of these things?
Don't get lost in the distractions of if I publish, what will people think of me? Should I target this group? Should I target? No, just write the stinking novel. And when it's done, and edit and do multiple drafts of said novel, it's not done the first time through. Invest in your craft. If this is what you want to do, invest in it and take time. Don't feel like you've got to rush. We live in a world that just wants everything now. That's not how you produce quality writing. Writing is a slow and methodical process, and it deserves that. That first novel, I pulled that trigger too fast and gonna have to fix that. So, but that was just a novice mistake, but don't want other people to have to live through that. So,
Enjoy the process and whatever times you need, let it happen. Just enjoy it. Tell me, sweetie,
yeah.
where can our listeners find you?
So y'all can find me at jmjordan.net. That's where my website is at. You can find Daughter of a King at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing as well. I'm on Amazon. Good news, the audiobook for Daughter of a King just launched this week. So that's also available on Audible. It's on the books on Kindle. We're pretty much everywhere that you can get stuff. You can find it. At least Daughter of a King, you can. It's out there.
Congratulations. I'm so excited. Sweetie, I could talk to you forever and you got busy schedule because you're a teacher and you got things to do. But before you
Yeah.
leave us, are you ready for a lightning round?
Sure.
Easy peasy. Don't think too hard on this. Ready? Coffee
Yes.
or tea?
Tea.
Nice. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Gummy bear or sour patch?
Gummy bears. Oh my goodness, what kind of question is that?
Desktop or laptops?
Both. Depends on the mood.
Good to know. So here's a little different. Let's see what your take on this one is. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. I would like to control the elements. Yep. Particularly lightning.
I like that. Can you control the snow and the rain? That would be amazing right now. Sign me up.
That's right.
Sweetie, it has been such a pleasure. Congratulations. Love the book. I'm excited for you. Do you have any closing remarks?
Just stay true to who you are. Live each day the best that you can. That's all we can do. We've got 24 hours.
Make the most of it. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations. Listeners, go ahead, follow Miss JM, check out the book or pick up the audiobook. Go for it. And like usual, it's been a pleasure to be hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us a like, give us a review, share the podcast, invite others to join us, and we'll see you again next week for another exciting episode. Bye, guys.